Of course you did, we all did. It's part of our childhood, it's part of who we are as a country. Something that holds us all together. The taste of Cadbury's dairy milk chocolate, lovely. The nectar of the gods. However, our continental friends and neighbours take a different view, don't they, Kash? Sadly, they do. Go on then, you tell them. Kashifa leaned forward at her desk. The EEC, she said, dramatically, does not consider Cadbury's chocolate, or indeed any British chocolate, to be chocolate. Martin stared back, uncomprehending. They say that it contains too much vegetable fat and not enough cocoa butter. Welcome to Bournville. Welcome to Rainier Books. Welcome, my name is Rainer. And this is a video about a book that I've read, the novel Bournville by Jonathan Coe, published in 2022. And this chocolate is called Bournville by Cadbury from the UK. Jonathan Coe is a very well-known author in the United Kingdom, at least. He has won lots of prizes. He's won the Costa Award that doesn't exist anymore, for his beautiful novel Middle England in 2018. He has won the Booker Prize, which is the greatest prize of them all in the English-speaking world. And he is out with another novel called Bournville, which actually has a subtitle, and this is A Novel in 7 Occasions, published in 2022 by Viking. And Jonathan Coe is, I think he has two masteries, or two things that he sort of pursues in a lot of his writing. One of them being England, the history of England, how it has become what it has become, how Brexit has happened, how this great empire fell into pieces, the decline of the British Empire, not in a way that he's mourning about it, but also the consequences, of course, of everything that is behind it. And also, Jonathan Coe is very interested in families and different generations. And in Bournville, we get a bit of everything, quite a lot of these two things, of the history of England, but also about the history of a family, because these things are very often intertwined and connected to each other. And Jonathan Coe is a master in sort of placing people, invented characters into the history that we all have lived through, and telling the history of a family by also telling the history of a country, or the history of a country by also telling the history of a family. So he gives sort of flesh and blood to history, you could say. This is a novel in 7 occasions. It starts in the middle of the pandemic, when a very young British woman, her name is Lorna. Lorna is a musician. She is in Austria for playing a couple of concerts, but a virus has made its way from the city of Wuhan in China and slowly coming to Europe. And she is playing a couple of concerts in Austria and in Germany, and the two people who do the concerts wonder if they would be able to sort of play the whole series of concerts. They will not. This is sort of the preface, which is the frame of the novel. In 2020, we return to that year in the last part of the novel. But then we have 7 occasions, and these 7 occasions are occasions that are British or English history. 1945, on May 8th, VE Day, is the first occasion, and it starts with chocolate already here. The air did not smell of chocolate, but chocolate was in the air. Nobody needed to put a name on the factory that stood at the heart of the village. They simply called it the Works. And inside this factory they made chocolate. They had been making chocolate there for more than 60 years. John Cadbury had opened his first shop in the centre of Birmingham back in 1824, selling ground cocoa beans for hot drinking chocolate. A devout Quaker like his brothers, this is the history of the Cadbury Works, of the Cadbury chocolate firm and company that you can see all in every shop in the United Kingdom. And in this first part in 1945, on VE Day, which is the Victory Day, the Germans have capitulated, have given up the Second World War. Only in Japan there are fights going on in the East. The World War is coming slowly to an end. And this Monday morning, May 7, we meet Doll, the grandmother of the family of the lamp the great-grandmother of the Lamb family, who is happy that the war is soon going to end, and she is cleaning. And there's a school in the vicinity of the house where she lives. And here is Coe describing that scenery in 1945. She was a creature of habit. At 11:15 every weekday, she always went out to sweep the front step, and had a very specific reason for doing so, because it was at this hour that the children at the school across the road took their morning break. She liked to get outside just before it started, so that first of all she had a few minutes to savour the habitual, resonant silence of Bournville at that time of the morning. Then she would hear the ringing of the teacher's handbell, and immediately afterwards it would begin, the gradually rising babble of high-pitched voices, muffled and indistinct at first, and suddenly full-throated as the main doors of the school were thrown open, and 87 children thundered out into the playground. Doll loved the silence that blanketed her village for much of the day, but she loved the sound of the next 15 minutes even more. She loved the sound of the children calling out each other's names, the shrill cries of overexcitement, the chanting of nursery rhymes and taunting songs and skipping games. And so on, like a murmurous river, like the incoming wash of the tide, a distant counterpoint to the swish, swish, swish of her broom on the step, a disembodied voice whispering in her ear over and over the mantra, everything change and everything stays the same. And this sentence, everything change and everything stays the same, is sort of a motto that we will return to in this novel. I won't spoil anything here for you, but exactly this feeling that Doll experiences in 1945 when she listens to the school children and their voices, will another inhabitant of that house many decades later have in the precisely same way. The way Jonathan Coe creates this Lamb family, Doll and her husband, the German relatives that have problems in the beginning because the war just ended and Germans are not very popular in the UK, understandably not very popular. We meet this family in this vicinity of big occasions of English history. It goes on 8 years later, in the second occasion, the coronation of Queen Elizabeth II. Then we have 13 years, the World Cup final, England versus West Germany in 1966. The investiture of Charles, Prince of Wales in 1969, the wedding of Charles, Prince of Wales and Lady Diana Spencer, 1981, the funeral of Diana, 1997, and finally the 75th anniversary of VE Day on May 8 in 2020. These 75 years from the end of the Second World War to 2020 come all together in this novel. We meet the grandchildren, the three grandsons of Doll, Martin, Peter and Paul, the three grandsons, and their lives are very central also in this novel. They're partners, and we have Paul, who's more a conservative kind of character, not very positive, sometimes also even a little bit racist, but he's representing one sort of people in the UK. We meet Martin. Martin Lamb is actually working for Cadbury's, for the chocolate corporation in Brussels. We we get to know about Brexit and about this country and its history. At some point, one of the grandsons says in that novel, we look back too much in this country, fixated on the past. That's the source of all our trouble. We have this national trauma when the EU decides that British chocolate, one of the prides of the country, that English chocolate from Cadbury is not regarded as chocolate in Europe, which is one of the small things that happen but causes a great divide. And we have this thing called the Chocolate War that I didn't know anything about. I learned it here from this book by Jonathan Coe. We have also the Thatcher years, the years when Margaret Thatcher becomes Prime Minister after a couple of Labour years, and Thatcher is sort of regaining the strength. She wants to make Britain strong again. The moribund, economically disastrous, strike-bound days of the 1970s were gone. Britain was no longer the sick man of Europe. It was no longer considered embarrassing to talk up your country, to express patriotic pride, to insist that Britain's glory days were anything but over. This was the keynote of Mrs. Thatcher's rhetoric, and British Leyland was rising to the occasion. It's the pride of the country which plays a very important role for the situation of the nation. And once again, like the presidents in the United States are doing once per year, the State of the Nation is Jonathan Coe is giving us the state of the English nation, and he's doing that on 8 occasions. But he's not only writing about history as we have perceived it, he's also writing about people of flesh and blood, and they are so beautifully depicted, the families with all their different kinds of problems that every family out there has. In Birmingham, in this case, the Lamb family, from Dahl, the grandparents, to Mary, the grandmother, and until the end of Mary's life, which plays a very beautiful part. It's a sad part, but also a very beautiful part, how Peter, her son, is connecting to his mother. It's a very beautiful chapter that makes you cry, but makes you also connect to the warmth and tenderness of this relationship between two generations of the Lamb family. I love that description very much. And the book ends with its beginning, but I'm not going to tell you how it ends. You will recognize it once you read it. And you have to read, if you're somehow interested in England and English history, but if you're somehow interested in the history of families over several generations, about their problems, their issues, but also their connections, their love for each other and their affection and the ability to accept, to be tolerant, then you've got to read Jonathan Coe's. You should read Jonathan Coe's Bournville. I have become a great fan of this author. I read his wonderful novel Mr. Wilder and Me, I read Middle England, and now I've read Bournville, and I give it a lot of stars. I would give it 5 stars out of 5. Not many people have talked about this, but it surely is a great author, and I want to read even more of him. He's writing novels in groups. He has written a couple of novels. Middle England was part of it, about the family saga where the Rotters Club, The Rain Before It Falls, and Middle England are playing a part. But he also has another group that he has defined. Mr. Wilder and Me belongs to, and also Bournville. So read it, enjoy it, and tell me what you think in the comments down below. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I see you soon on this channel. Bye.